So how do we explain suffering and the problem of evil in the East? It's because of karma. And I really love talking about karma because a lot of people have very, very poor, failing understanding of karma. A lot of people simply define karma as what comes around goes around, not karma. Likewise, a lot of people who, state that they are Christian say they likewise believe in karma. No, Jesus of Nazareth did not teach karma. And if you don't believe me, read. It's not in here, okay? We get karma from the East. It has its origins in Hinduism because, like I said before, Hinduism is so old. Now, what is karma? The best way to understand karma is with an image, with a visual. So what I'd like everybody to do is to visualize a pond. Okay? Now, imagine a pebble or a stone being dropped into the middle of the pond, and what's going to happen? Yeah, the ripples. Okay? Now, follow the ripples, follow. When they get to the edge of the pond, what happens? Yeah, they hit and then they travel back to the origin point. Right? They go out and then they come back. That's karma. You might be thinking, what? Karma teaches that everything that we do, every action has a consequence. So the initiating action would be the dropping of the stone or pebble into the center of the pond. And then the reaction, the consequence, would be the resultant waves that return to us in the center of that pond. That's karma. Now you might be saying, well, Mr. K, that sounds a lot like what comes around goes around. With karma, according to the teachings of karma, if you do a good action, then the waves that come back to you will be good fortunes. Good things will happen to you. Likewise, if that stone that was dropped into the middle was a bad action, then the waves, the consequences that come to you will be bad. And this is true not only in this life, but in the lives to come, because of the transmigration of the soul, because of reincarnation. And this is why karma is not part in any way of the monotheistic faiths. It's not part of Judaism, Christianity, nor Islam. It's found in the Eastern faiths, comes out of Hinduism. And this helps us to understand suffering and the problem of evil. So, why, if we reflect upon this from the monotheistic faiths, why do bad things happen? And the answer is, well, it's because of my sinful nature, and it's because of the fall of man. Right? We're talking about Adam and Eve. But in this respect, teachings of karma, what's the problems of suffering and evil existing? It's my fault. My fault. Because I did some bad things, not only in this life, but in a past life. And if you think about a really big rock that you're dropping in that pond, and you think about the size and the immensity of that rock as being, that action, whether something really, really bad or really, really good, that's going to create more waves and higher waves. So if things are going really bad for you, it's because you've done some really bad stuff, and those waves are reaching you. Now, that's karma. Another part of this is because of ignorance and dharma. We all know what ignorance is, right? That not knowing. And don't confuse ignorance with stupidity. The perfect example of that would be, for example, I am ignorant of calculus. What does that mean? I am unknowing of calculus because I've never had calculus, so I'm ignorant of it, and that's why I don't talk about it. Okay? But if I was to sit down and do some basic math, which I can do, some low algebra, and if I was to make a mistake, then I'd say, oh, I'm so stupid. Why is that? Because I have knowledge of it, but I would fail to correctly execute that knowledge. That's the difference between ignorance and stupidity. So with the Eastern faiths, they say a lot of this comes from ignorance, from not knowing. So the Eastern faiths teach we need to move from not knowing to knowing. We need to move away from ignorance to knowledge and recognize the fact that our actions have reactions and consequences on our own lives. Not just in this life, but in future lives as well. Also, we fail to acknowledge dharma. And dharma is translated as truth as well as duty. Everybody knows what's right and what's wrong. You can hem and haw about it, but everybody knows that when you come to a stop sign, you're supposed to stop, right? Everybody knows that when you're standing in line at the grocery store and you see the person in front of you pull out his billfold and he doesn't know it, but a 20 slips to the floor and he doesn't recognize it, everybody knows you're supposed to say, "Sir, excuse me, you just dropped a $20 bill," as opposed to doing the big right foot goes out and you put your foot on that 20 and you slowly draw it back, and then you reach in and drop your keys, and then we all know not to do that, right? We all know our dharma. We all know our duty. We all know what's truth and righteous in this world, but we fail to do it. And so again, how does this tie in with karma? The Eastern faiths teach that when evil and suffering is a part of your life, it's your fault because you have done something to cause it. Now, in a mythological sense, and mythological refers to the study of myths, we get the figure of the trickster. And some students have likened the trickster to kind of the idea of the catfish, of stirring up trouble. The trickster is a mythological figure that causes conflict and strife in the world, and that is the result of suffering and evil. So in this understanding, the mythological context, the figure of the serpent in Genesis, that story we looked at earlier, that would be the trickster figure that stirs up trouble. And so in this understanding, what's that stupid snake? Although you have to wonder, if there's a talking snake, man, I am going the other way. I'm not talking to a snake. But that would fit in with the trickster. And in case you're curious, throughout the other mythologies in Hinduism, there are trickster figures in those as well. So these are some of the different theodicies that we get that help us to address and understand the problem of suffering and why is there evil in a world when we have a loving ultimate being. And here again, wow, already we've reached the 10-minute mark. So on the next slide, I'll promise, we will wrap up this chapter, these miscellaneous doctrines.